So, on Wednesday, we are going to have a new leader, a new Prime Minister in the UK. It's Teresa May. However, the questions just roll on and on and on in this political soap opera that we're going through at the moment. And I know quite a few of you asked me questions. For example, will they ever invoke Article 50? Are we actually going to Brexit? Will they kick it into the long grass? Is it ever going to happen? And so that's what I want to talk about during this particular podcast, or vlog, should I say. And I'm also going to look at Michael Gove's chart and again, in a later vlog, at Andrea Levison's and also Jeremy Corbyn's, because it's interesting to see now, okay, we've got the Prime Minister, but who are going to be the other key political players? I still think Liam Fox is going to play a rather large role in the whole Brexit negotiations, but who else will be a key player? So first of all, what is Article 50? Well, before the Lisbon Treaty, there was no exit clause from the European Union. The only way you could leave it is by an individual country revoking the European Communities Act. But now the whole Article 50 is there to help countries exit. Of course, it's never been used before. It should take 2 years from the time in which it's invoked, but countries can apply for longer if negotiations are going particularly slowly. So I definitely think that Teresa May will invoke Article 50. I think it's going to take some time, but I do think we are definitely going to Brexit. Some people said to me, will there be a second referendum? I'm very doubtful of this, because when Pluto is involved in a chart, endings are usually irrevocable and final, and you push on to something new. It's not a case of, well, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, okay, we want to get back in the ring again. So I'm going to get this out. This was my original chart that I showed you when I was having a look at the likelihood of Brexit. So we can forget about a lot of these, but now transiting Pluto, which is the current position of Pluto, which is in Capricorn, is going to be moving to oppose the Moon in Cancer, which is in the 10th house in the UK's chart. Now in a country's chart, the 10th house represents, among other things, the Prime Minister. And I think it's quite significant that for the UK there should be a Moon representing woman in the 10th house, because undoubtedly the UK's most famous, possibly most influential, and also divisive Prime Minister, Maggie Thatcher, was a woman. And we know that the queens we've had in the UK, like Queen Victoria and our current Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, have been both the longest serving and also highly influential in the country's history. So women have played a remarkable role in the destiny of the country. So I feel that at this point, when we're changing destiny, it was highly appropriate that we have Teresa May as a woman being elected. So Pluto begins to oppose the Moon up in the 10th house, in the Prime Minister, from the beginning of next year. And Uranus will also be stimulating that point at the end of this year. So what I'm thinking is that definitely there won't be much activity over August, for the logical reason of a lot of the politicians both in the EU and over here will be on holiday. I think major plans will start happening towards the end of the year, and I see that they'll invoke Article 50 maybe the beginning of 2017, which means negotiations running right through 2017, 2018, and I think there will be an extension into 2019. So those 3 years are going to be particularly significant for the negotiations. So it is up to the Prime Minister of the UK to invoke Article 50 rather than a cabinet decision. And I think that, Teresa May will definitely go for it, and the negotiations will begin really intensively in February of next year. In the chart of the EU, I think we already had a look at transiting Pluto affecting these 2 planets here, Uranus and Neptune, which are in the 6th house. The important thing about that is Uranus in the chart of the EU rules the descendant, which is the house, and the 6th and the 7th house, which involves treaties, negotiations with other countries, and that's being stimulated by Pluto in February, which we can see obviously that's going to be an intense time for the EU. And also Neptune, which rules the 8th house of loss and divorce, is also activated in the EU. So for them, it shows that this is also a tumultuous time, a time of separation, a time of great change. And I think what has often been overlooked in the whole Brexit debate, when all the commentators have been talking about it, is how the EU feel about it. They're losing a very important member, someone who's been not a formative member, but certainly a huge contributory member as the UK have been. So not often is it being looked at the effect of them, and I think from February next year, they are going to start feeling the effect, and that's going to want to bring them forward to the negotiations to negotiate something really that's going to work for everybody. A lot of people have talked about, well, we have a kind of Norway-style deal where absolutely nothing changes, where we'll just have less power to make decisions, but we'll still have to accept freedom of movement and pay in to be part of the single market. My argument against that is Norway is a country of only sort of 4 million people, as opposed to the UK, which has 65 million. Their economy is export-led, whereas the UK is a big importer. We run a huge deficit with the EU. So I think the nature of the deal we can negotiate would be very different with such a small country as Norway, because we have so much more leverage. What's often not talked about is, obviously we all know UK is a service-led economy, and within the EU there never was a free market in services. It was the idea, but they never got quite around to doing all the rule changes and negotiations to create a free market in services. So if the UK could negotiate something like that, then we'd actually be in a lot of a better position, because in terms of free movement of goods, well, we're not an exporter, so that is not immensely to our benefit. So, because of the presence of Pluto, I think that we will have a deal that is substantially different from that to Norway and Switzerland, and there will be a significant change in our relationship with Europe. It won't just be business as usual, but with a few less of the perks kind of things in terms of decision making. And I definitely think that as we go through these years, there'll be a lot of decision making to be made, a lot of intense negotiations. Still confident that Teresa May is the correct person, although I'm also positive about Andrea Leadsam's future in the Conservative Party. As part of this vlog, I thought I'd just make a quick little discussion about Michael Gove, because I feel that he does have characteristics that would make him a very good, not so much a negotiator, but perhaps a policy maker in terms of the Brexit negotiations. This is Michael Gove's chart. He has a whole lot of planets in Virgo. You can see he's got Sun, Mercury, Venus, Pluto and Uranus all packed into Virgo. So what does this say about him? Well, apart from his other planets, this says he's not a particularly good leader. He's a perfectionist. He's good with detail. He's a good analyst. He's a good researcher. He's very good at fine detail that a lot of people would find a bit boring. As you saw in the debates, he's quite good at putting facts, figures. He's really on point. He gets across the nitty-gritty of the things, but he's not particularly inspiring. I also think with Michael Gove, it's a case of, get the doctor, we've got a case of a political bipolar here, because he was telling everybody before the referendum that he wasn't interested in the Prime Minister's job. It wasn't for him, he didn't like the job, he'd seen the job, it wasn't turning him on, and then all of a sudden, oh, hi guys, I'm running for Prime Minister. And I think that typifies something in Michael Gove's chart, which I see here, and that is his Moon square Jupiter. Now this indicates someone who rides on the back of their moods at times. They're either in a glass half full mood or a glass half empty mood, and these moods really affect their decision making. When they're feeling great, they feel like they can achieve almost anything. When they're in a bit of a negative frame of mind, they tend to be so pessimistic and they underrate themselves. So I think that aspect, also in relation to his Mars conjunct Neptune in Scorpio, means that he's a little bit emotionally driven and sometimes doesn't always make wise decisions when the emotions take hold of him. So perhaps not the best person to be a leader, and also he can get quite irritable. It's a case of, I can just imagine him saying, well, if you don't like it, you can jolly well lump it, in his accent, of course, because he gets quite irritable and things really get to him. But he is a very good person for formatting policy, and so I don't think he's to be disregarded in terms of the cabinet or the team when it comes to the Brexit negotiations. He's not really a negotiator, but he is a good person for going through the details, the nitty-gritty, the finer points. He can go through reams of information. He's got a very good analytical ability and the ability to edit a vast amount of information into something concise, which can maybe then be submitted to other people and made more understandable for others.